Hi, it's Laura, and I again made stuff and didn't include all of you in the process. That wasn't very nice of me. Anyway, I finished up we have all our tags, and I finished up the last kind of tag set because it all kind of came all together in a set. And again, I was binge watching a show and I decided to do that while I was working on it rather than filming the process. I'll get better about filming the process at the same time, but I was excited to get this one completed. So with this one, it had the tag that kind of folded over a tag that was inside of it, and then I added another little set of tags, so there's like 4 or 5 tags inside this guy. And with this one, I used this string and closure thingy that came on one of the tags, and I was able to take it apart so I could string it through and then put it back on there. And then I have this little tie on there that it slides down, it tightens it, and then I can open it up so that it's easier to go in here. I went with some bright colors on the front, so then I decided to go with that same kind of color palette on the inside. And again, I'm using some cut up words. Some of them I just randomly put them together. Well, I find them and then I randomly start putting them together. So I don't randomly put them together. I just kind of put them together in sayings or phrases that sound right to me in the moment. But I randomly choose them from different book pages. So, excuse me, this one was already a stanza from a poem. And in the cover it says, "Take care of the now." And here it says, "In my thoughts, mysterious harmonies and shadowy sketches of my future fate, felt but not understood, vague happy musings in young and glowing colors." That sounds like my every single freaking morning. This is where my brain is at its most creative until it gets squashed by having to deal with, life. So, but yeah, no, that's my morning. But this was from a printed paper, and then I love using the negatives of when I punch out circles. Circles are a thing, dots, circles. Those have been a thing of mine. Dots, circles, and grids have been a thing of mine basically since as far as I can remember. I have a whole bunch from a drawing class in college back in the early 80s. And I'm not saying that very loud. It was a whole series on grid stuff. So anyway, so then this tag was these little 3-parters, and this big one was part of this other one. So, but I'm also really I've done this on a lot of pieces lately, where I have things that line, it's almost like, this crossing, and at that crossing ties into the grids and the dots. So I had these laying on top of each other so that grid lines up when you set it on there just right. But anyway, this says, "Touch the wings." And this is just a little flag, skinny little piece. And I kept it simple on the back. And then she flies with her own wings. And again, that crossing. And that crossing continues down onto this third piece. But on the back side, it says, "They were leading me around twists and turns." And again, it's not really a bullseye, but it's a crossing, a point of crossing, a point of, I don't know. Gets a little woo-woo for me at times in the evening. So, and that, why would they do that? And again, those little crossing points. And this one, I punched the circle. This had a circle on it, and I punched the circle out. Kept it simple on the back. But the paper naturally had this line going down the middle. It serendipitously worked out really cool that way. And then this one, I had in my pile of stuff, some using texture paste with a stencil, and I didn't really like the color it came out at the time, so I saved it and I used that on here, and then I stenciled some on here. This is some rub-ons. But this was a stamp that says, "Art is not about thinking something up, it's about getting something down." And isn't that the point of this let's make stuff? So Woo, profound. And then I kept these simple on the back here. Again, I love using these. I've used these quite a bit over the years. These negative circle punch parts. And then this one with some pattern paper. And then on the back, again, simple. So when I stack these guys all together, so that one's in the back. That was one of the first ones, but I've kind of ordered these. But again, when they're loose, they're going to end up in a variety of different orders potentially. Now, one of the things I did is because this turned into a chunky, funky monkey. And so it was a little thick, especially with the thin cotton fabric of the little pocket I made. So I kind of revised it, but I didn't completely finish it so that you could see. So what I did is I took some heavier weight canvas, which will hold things better. And if you recall, these two pieces were together. So I cut the bottom off and I tore the bottom, tore these down the middle so that it had the upper band. So this is still exactly what I had stitched on for these ties. Excuse me. And then the lower section, I attached it. So these are stitched on with some just lime green thread and stitched on so that this is a little heavier when I put these guys in. But because they're still thick, I want to make a little gusset thing on the bottom. And this, I got this stuff from when I used to make purses and bags and stuff. So what I've done is exactly how I made the other one. So you can follow those directions. I just wasn't thinking in terms of this cotton fabric was just too lightweight for as thick as this is. So having this canvas was a little bit better. So anyway, stitch across the bottom just like I did before. But then if I open this up, so I've got this fold, this back fold. So if I bring the bottom, keeping it nice and snug up at the corner, but see, that's where the fold is along that back. So you just take and you bring that stitched seam down to that fold line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finger press that excess that's below that seam line. I'm going to fold it all towards what's going to be the front. So folding it all that way. And then I'm going to take and fold this down. Now, so it makes a little triangle. See how it makes that little triangle? So that point came down to that seam line. So that's folded. Now, you can stitch across there, but I'm just going to fold it and tack that down. Now, that width of that little fold thing, that width right there is how deep this little pouch then becomes, because now what I've created is a side and a bottom. But so let's go ahead, holding that in place. Now I've already got a threaded and knotted needle. I was semi-prepared. So then I'm going to kind of just tack this down with an X. Let me get a hold of it better so that I can get my hand in there. So I'm doing it from this other side. So trying to keep this to where, I can show you what I'm doing, and holding it sometimes can be a bit more awkward than if I weren't trying to show you how I do this. So I'm trying not to stab myself. So I'm just going to make an X. This is just to tack this little triangle gusset maker thingy down. So that's tacking that down. So that's just going to make that a little thicker. But I want to hold this down too. So I'm going to continue. This is when I wish I was more ambidextrous. So trying to do this so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to tack this little seam thing down too. Also with little X's. Maybe a little bit more centered. So if you hear my dog howling in the background, I apologize. My husband went to work out, and Tucker has decided he is part coyote, and he now howls out of separation anxiety when my husband leaves. So he's a Chihuahua mix of who Lord only knows what else is in there, but obviously some sort of dog that howls. So if you hear that, that's no dogs are being tortured in the background or cats. It's just my Chihuahua mix howling for his dad. So anyway, so we're just doing these little X's that are going to be along the bottom. I was going to not talk during this and speed this up and just do this with music, but I'm so used to talking too much during this because of doing live streams and YouTubes for, oh wow, it's been over 15 years now. It's hard to believe. I had somebody try to explain how to do YouTube videos the other day. And it's like, excuse me? Maybe I don't do them like the big production type stuff like some people do and the fancy lead-ins with music and all that stuff. And it's like, didn't used to need to have to do all that stuff, but okay. So I'm just going to fold it, so it's that width. So I don't have that straight fold, and I'm just finger pressing it. And same here on the bottom. So see, that makes it kind of makes like a box corner. And so then with this little fat chunky monkey, when I slip that in there, I like it better. And I'm not necessarily going to tie this in a bow on the side. Well, maybe I will. I was thinking I could just tie a regular kind of knot thing, but nah, we'll do the bow. So this is sturdier than the lightweight cotton by having this canvas. But see, now that holds the whole shoot and match all together. So we now have a TagBook. So this was tons of fun to do. So I'm excited. So we're ready for a new project. So in the comments, if you have something very specific that you'd like to see me doing, let me know that. I do ask, and I keep forgetting this part. My son keeps going, oh my God, Mom, why can you not remember to do this? Please like and follow if you want to see more of this kinds of stuff. Now, I'm not always going to be just demonstrating. Sometimes I'll do it more as a teaching. Sometimes I'm just going to show you what I'm working on. This is just kind of like, hey, let's just make stuff. But if you'd prefer it to be more of a class type thing where I'm teaching more, or if there's pretty much anything craft-wise that you're interested in learning how to do, I've probably done it. You saw that list on the intro thing. So one of the things I am seriously looking at doing is something where I'm just using white, cream, natural kind of color stuff. And I might throw in some black or black and white. And then anything colored, I'm going to create that. I haven't decided whether I want to do it. It's probably going to include both paper and fabric, but I haven't decided if I want to do a book or something 3D or whatever. But anyway, the thoughts I'm having for the next project is potentially a book, like I just mentioned, or a 3D project. The other is continuing on with some more of my fabric fodder, but then again, that starting with neutral, starting from, neutral with no color and adding color with any kind of thing kind of picks up the fabric fodder and it's some paper stuff as well. And the other thought was doing something like 3D, but again, I made this list and then I thought up this neutral thing. And the other thought was doing some sort of a quilt thing. I'm also considering doing a quilt project, some quilting basics. As I have mentioned, I started quilting back in 19 1984 is when I did my very first quilt, because last year was the 40th anniversary. I've made beyond the number of quilts that I could even think of and count or even remember. Sometimes I pull stuff out and go, oh, I totally forgot about this one. So anyway, if anybody's interested in learning some quilting from me, I mean, there's 5 billion videos out for quilting, but you know, everybody does a little bit different. I'd love to do a quilt from start to finish for beginners. Or we can do some sort of mixed media quilt, or because you've watched me do books forever, because I didn't do much quilting on social media because I switched over to paper about the time social media. I mean, I don't think Instagram was really happening just yet. I know it was mainly Facebook, and YouTube was 10 minutes. So I don't think Instagram existed. But if you want to see some of my most recent work, for those of you who've been around but think haven't really been around, I have. You can go over to my Instagram at Laura D. Denison, is the handle over on Instagram, and you can see some of my most recent stuff. It's kind of a whatever my brain is on at that moment. It's kind of all over the place. I don't know how I maintained focus on the paper craft stuff for as long as I did. But anyway, so give me some thoughts and ideas of what kind of projects you would like me to see me do. I'm not going to go back and do any old projects that's super specific. If I do incorporate any old projects, I would update them, freshen them up, make them new, all that kind of stuff. But anyway, this has been a fun little project to work on, and I hope you remember to keep your tags when you purchase any garments, or have your family hoard them for you as well, and turn it into just a fun little book. And all of this, every single piece of this, was just out of my scraps pile. That's my fabric and my papers. It's all stuff that I had. It's leftover bits and pieces and scraps and stuff like that. You know, you don't have to go. None of this did I even think about going out and purchasing anything. This was just, you know, the bowl of tags. It was all materials that I already have. So, you know, as we're all tightening our belts a little bit, not knowing what's going to be happening in the future, use what you have. I mean, I can probably leave anybody's stash to shame. So I have tons of stuff. Tons, because, you know, leftover kit stuff, all of that kind of stuff. So anyway, leave me a comment of what you'd like to see me do. And don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can share with more people as I try to get the algorithm to like me again. So anyway, that's the stuff we made. Thanks a bunch.